All right, we got a lot to cover here. The Daisy number 25 started production 1913, 1914, right on up to this very day with a few hiccups. Now, I want to talk about the rich history that this gun shares, helps to remind us of. This didn't come out till 1914. However, the Plymouth Iron Windmill Company in Plymouth, Michigan, they started around 1888. And, well, they actually started earlier than that. But by around 1888, things were changing in the world. And their little promo, which was a little BB gun, a little promo BB gun, was doing better than their windmills. And so they decided to transfer from making windmills to BB guns. In 1888 is a significant year here. So let's take a look at what was going on in 1888. You had the first ball pen was invented. Jack the Ripper had killed his last victim. The drinking straw was patented. National Geographic Society was founded, and they started really discovering the world around them. The first audio recording of Handel's Israel and Egypt was put on one of those cylinders that later became a record, right? 1888, a lot was happening. Eastman from the Kodak company had patented his roll of films, making photography really available to everyone. What else was happening? Let's see, Spain had started working on the submarine. Thomas Edison, he had started working on movies. He made his first optical phonograph. Right, so that was the first stab at movies. Oh, Vincent van Gogh. He cut off his ear. But what we're really concerned with here is in 1888, Clarence Hamilton, who was the founder of the Plymouth Windmill Company, he brought the prototype to Lewis Hoe, who was the president of the company back then, shareholder. Brought him, not this, but probably what eventually was the Red Ryder. Brought a prototype, and Lewis, Mr. Lewis Hoe, was heard to say, well, that's a daisy, and therefore the seeds of daisy were planted. They didn't immediately call themselves Daisy. In fact, they were selling windmills, but around 1888, things were changing so rapidly, and windmills weren't as popular by then, that their guns were selling better than the windmills. So they decided to change to production of BB guns. So let's talk about 1889, because 1888 is when they started thinking about making BB guns, not this one. Now 1889 is the following year, and Plymouth Iron Windmill replaced guns with windmills. So by 1889, they had replaced making windmills and started making their Daisy BB guns. Again, not the 25. This didn't come out until 1913 or so. So let's look at some of the things that happened during 1889 that are significant. 6 years later, in 1895, they actually changed their name to the Daisy Manufacturing Company. That was actually January 26th, 1895 is when that happened. So 6 years later, we're talking about 1889 here. 6 years later, they went to calling their company Daisy Manufacturing. Okay. So let's see some other interesting things. I mean, there is Herman, what is his name? Hollerith, I think his name. Anyway, he received the patent for the first computer. Coca-Cola sort of came out. They weren't quite selling yet, but that's when actual cocaine was in the Coca-Cola. That was out around then. The seeds of World War I were being sown as well, with the killing of Prince Rudolph of Austria-Hungary, you know. He was murdered supposedly for not supporting the ousting of his father, which was Franz Joseph, and of course he was a prominent figure leading into World War I. 1889, the Eiffel Tower, right? The brazier was invented. And 2,209 people died in the Pennsylvania Johnstown flood. If you're familiar with that, but check that out. That's an amazing story. And the Wall Street Journal began in 1889, and so did wireless messages, not wired messages. Wireless messages began right around this period, right? So I'm going to try to get through this rather quickly, but by 1890, I'm going to kind of blow through this. 1890, right up to 1913. Now I'm going to leave out a lot, so I'm really just trying to get to the important stuff here. February 10th, we're still fighting Native Americans here in America, right? The electric chair was invented. The imperial powers are spreading worldwide, eventually war. December 15th, Sitting Bull is murdered, and December 29th, Wounded Knee happens, where 200 are massacred. Then, ironically, December 31st, Ellis Island opens up. So we're killing Indians, but bringing people in. There's nothing funny about that. By 1891, Edison radio is invented, right? 1891, radio. Charles Brady King invents the pneumatic hammer. Now, this is very interesting because I'm not quite sure if this is the same King involved with King BB guns, which Daisy eventually acquired, right? So let's see, 1891, we also have Sherlock Holmes, right? October 31st, Sherlock Holmes came out. 1893, let's jump around a little bit. The electric car is invented in Canada, right on Canada. Here's a very important thing I want you to remember. The U.S. In March 17th, in 1893, the U.S. signs a treaty with China to keep Chinese laborers out of America. That's going to tie in later on here. 1896, X-rays are discovered in Germany. Radiation treatment for breast cancer starts in 1896. You believe that? March 6th, they start making cars in Detroit. August 12th in 1896, the Klondike Gold Rush. And in 1898, March 6th, aspirin is registered as a drug. And this is important because aspirin later on eventually replaces a very popular drug of the era, which is heroin. So heroin and cocaine are becoming, are very popular. Cocaine is going to become popular very soon through the use of Coca-Cola. And all right, let's keep it running here. In 1898, also, ironically, July 1st, the Gideons start putting Bibles all over the place in hotels in America. 1909, February 26th, the Boxer Rebellion and the beheading of probably, oh, I forget who they beheaded, but the Boxer Rebellion. August 14th, Gustav Whitehead flies his number 21 plane, or supposedly flies his number 21 plane, August 14th. 1909, September 6th, President McKinley is shot and killed. 1902, Madame Curie isolates radium. And in 1902, May 2nd, the movie called Trip to the Moon is put out. And now that brings us to 1913. 1913 is when the first Model 25 came out, or at least was invented, right? And then 1914 they were manufacturing them. The most significant thing here is Sun Yat-sen. Sun Yat-sen, remember that name, influences China with Western ways, right? Sun Yat-sen was schooled in Hawaii and went back to China and heavily influenced China. And December 1st, the first drive-up gas station and Henry Ford's assembly line is put into use. So that brings us to that's part one. I just wanted to go this far, and give you some appreciation for this amazing thing that we call a BB gun. All right, I'll see you section 2, where we'll go more into the gun itself.